Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel, and just a quick one from me, but it's one where you guys can kind of interact with the content, hopefully, and enjoy yourself a little bit as well. Massive thank you to my boy Ulysses, who's put together something really interesting. It's a new signing comparison table. So I'm going to go through some of the graphs. I'm going to have a look at some of the things that I find it interesting, maybe put forward some questions to you guys, but there is a PDF in the description. Click on it, have a look at it, you know, make love to it, and get involved in the comments. I want to kind of do this where, like, look, people go, here's your video, watch it. No, you guys know what you're talking about. Get involved. You know your teams better than I do. Dive into the transfers. Of course, you can pick apart some of these numbers because we're going to have a look at sort of game week 3 and basically how integrated transfers are into their squad, and also kind of how important these new signings are to their squad as well. It's all really interesting and curious, and I want you guys to get involved. If you like these kind of videos, then let me know that by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel, please, because it just shows that, like, oh, okay, you've got a taste for these things. I'll think of new ideas, we'll get them together, and we'll get moving on up, moving on out. Time to break free. Nothing can stop us. All right. Right, let's dive into this and just certain clubs to kind of look at. So what we did, we've done the ins, the outs, the current squad percentage, starting lineup, and the game week 20 man squad. Now, again, injuries will play a factor, certain things will play a factor, but overall, this is really enlightening in terms of how integrated these signings are and which teams are going to go, oh, no, actually, take a second. Let's take a second. We'll bring him in when we're ready. And which teams are going, okay, just get them in the team ASAP. Right, let's have a look. Scroll down to the bottom. Oh, yeah, 3 lovely graphs to have a look at. So first of all, in terms of the full squad, I was interested to know what the change would be. What is the sort of percentage turnover of these Premier League squads? So you can see in red, that is the full squad, and then obviously the percentage to the side of them. So teams that are worth looking at here that maybe we haven't discussed in terms of having a good window or, you know, spending a lot of money. There's one that's glaring for me, and then there's one that is actually really, well, quite surprising, if I'm honest. So the one that's really obvious is the fact that over 50%, scroll back up to the top, 53% of the current squad for Nottingham Forest has changed. That's so important, I think, to say, because it shows just how much of a change they need to make. And I think we'll kind of discuss the newly promoted teams, because you've got to kind of make that cull. There's got to be that understanding of which players are good enough, which players aren't good enough, so forth. So Fulham, in terms of their percentage, 26%. But the other one that I thought was really interesting, West Ham, 27%. And generally, this sort of average is looking around 20%, I would say, in terms of changing your squad, between 15 and 20%, I would say. And I thought that was interesting. So 23%. But West Ham, who I don't think we focused a huge amount in terms of them going big in the transfer market, actually, in terms of their squad, the players that are left, the players that are new, there is a big change there, 27% on that. But I think Forest, of course, are the main talking point for this first one, 53%, and will be the big talking point moving forward. And actually, just to say, I've done a video explaining Nottingham Forest and why they've had to make so many changes over this transfer window, and if spending so much money is a good or a bad thing. So go check out that video when you get a chance to. We keep on moving, because I want this to be quick, fresh, you know, not me waffling on for ages. How many new signings made it into game week 3? So this, I think, is super interesting as well, because yes, you can bring in transfers, but are they part of the 20-man squad, and are they a part of the starting lineup? Because I think first and foremost, we then move on to Southampton and Leeds. Wolves and United, I think, are interesting in this one as well. And Brighton, Leicester and Liverpool right down the bottom there. And this is, again, I want it to be about you. I want it to be about us. You know what I love about this channel is your opinions, interesting opinions that I can then take and use and make myself sound smart with. Yeah? Help me help you. Help me help you. So what's interesting here for me is that, okay, yeah, look, so the transfers of Southampton and Leeds in particular, there is a real sort of hastening in terms of getting them into the 20-man squad. And I've got to be honest, what you can see here is that generally, in terms of players being in that 20-man squad, the new signings are generally all going in there. But in terms of having players in the starting lineup, that's where it's that little bit different. But Southampton, I thought was really, really interesting. They've got players that are going straight into the starting lineup. Leeds as well. Again, we knew there was going to be turnover with Leeds. And then just broadly speaking, you just feel like, okay, these are the teams that we're a bit nervous about, right? A lot of the teams we're a little bit nervous about are the teams that are kind of both making those changes, and we're not sure if they're going to do well, but we know that they're going to have to be involved. Again, let's come back to West Ham and Spurs actually as well, which are interesting. Actually, we'll save that for the last one. Let's scroll right down to the bottom here. Look, I think with Liverpool, injuries are playing a part in this a little bit, but overall, there's not a huge amount of change in comparison to the other teams in the squad. Leicester City, of course, feels really, really stale. No change there at all. And I think actually in Liverpool and Leicester in particular, you're really seeing that sort of staleness. I think both have struggled with the start of the season. Look, you've got to add the injuries to that with Liverpool in particular for me, but I just think it's interesting. Brighton, on the other hand, with the amount of players that they've brought in, they're not rushing to integrate them into the squad at all. And yet they're still really, really impressive. And coming back down here, the fact that in terms of new signings in the squad, they haven't had a huge turnover either. And they've lost Basuma and Cucurella. So I think it's Estupinian, Undav, players like that have come in. It'll be interesting to see how they get integrated over time. And that's the other thing to say, is that this is game week 3. This is one game week. So yeah, these aren't bulletproof numbers. I just think they're interesting to have a quick look at. But again, overall, in terms of teams getting involved, I think you're trying to get them in the 20-man squad. You can see that with Everton. Everton's still got players to come into this starting lineup and have a bit of an impact. West Ham, massively so. And Spurs as well. Wolves and Man United here, you can see that in terms of the changes they've made, the players that they're bringing in, they're needing to integrate as soon as possible, which is interesting as well. And then we scroll up. So this is how much of each game week 3 20-man squad were new signings. So diving deeper into game week 3 specifically now, and how many of those players, again, making it into the starting lineup. Forest, again, big turnover. New players, 12 out of the 20. Again, over 50%. That's absolutely amazing. But again, I keep having a look at West Ham and Spurs, with especially Spurs, when we're focusing on how impressive they've been. Conte is really, really taking his time in terms of integrating this team. And I think my view on it is that it's to value the players that are still there. And the players, he's like flushed out the ones that he doesn't want. But in terms of the players that he does want to have, it's interesting because I think he's going, no, we're going to need you. It's Champions League. We've got lots to do. We're not just going to go shun you to the side and chuck in everyone straight away. And I think that's actually quite a smart move if you can get the wins. But even if you can't get the wins, I think because you're going to have a squad that's going to have that overall feeling of feeling important, I think it's of use. West Ham not rushing either. Interesting, Aston Villa not really getting involved too much with the players, but I think that's a bit unfair because Coutinho didn't play in this game, but Dia did. Crystal Palace, a similar thing, but not too many signings, of course, from them. Again, Brighton, Liverpool, Leicester at the bottom of all of this, and Southampton, that I thought was interesting. They are the new players in the squad and going straight into the starting lineup. Straight into the starting lineup. That's really, really interesting for me because the difference between players that are sort of in the squad but not starting, West Ham, Spurs, Villa, Palace, Man City as well, is that due to quality? I think with Spurs, you think it's some, front runners for them, right? So, yeah, Leeds as well, as we said earlier, coming in and really, really important. Bournemouth, I thought was interesting, just from the point of view when you're seeing Forest with the amount of changes they've made, Fulham with the amount of changes they've made, and Bournemouth, they have players coming in, going straight into the starting lineup, but not that many of them at this moment in time. So changes, I think, will be made. Integration will ensue. But overall, I just thought this was really interesting because, in terms of bringing in players, you look at the final numbers here, 63% for Nottingham Forest, huge changes there. Southampton, 45% of their starting lineup being different to that final starting lineup at the end of last season. And with change, it can freshen up or it can be a little bit too much. And I just think, who's got it right and who's got it wrong and who's keeping their powder dry? That's what I find really interesting. Not much more for me to say than that, but I'm intrigued to know. Like I said, there's a PDF in the description. Get involved, get your hands on it. If you see anything interesting, let me know. And if you're into stats and putting together things like this, I can never promise anything. I'll be honest. If I don't find it interesting, I won't talk about it on the channel. But if there are things like this that you think are enlightening and worth 10 minutes of my time, I can do an easy video and I can give you a shout out. I'm obviously more than happy to do that because, yeah, it's just nice to have interesting football discussions as often as possible. So get involved, subscribe, hit the like button. I'll see you next time.